I didn't move for politics, man. I moved because the climate was better. And there were many wear less clothes, you know what I mean? And everything's half price, that's why I moved.
Lemmy Kilmister had a hidden respect for bands that truly nailed what music should be. The Motorhead legend knew exactly what incredible rock should sound and feel like deep in your bones. These bands were the ones who truly understood the raw spirit of rock. Let us now find out which epic band earned Lemmy's rare salute and the one great song he insisted was pure rock perfection. 1. Hawkwind. Kicking off our list of bands that earned Lemmy's genuine respect is Hawkwind, and this one's personal because Lemmy wasn't just a fan, he was in the band. For a good chunk of the early 70s, Lemmy laid down the bass lines and even sang a bit for these space rock pioneers.
And from the group that should have written Star Wars and didn't, the spirit of the age, my best friends, Hawkwind!
This wasn't just a job for him, it was a massively important time that helped shape the musician he would become. Hawkwind's unique sound, a swirling, cosmic mix of heavy rock, psychedelic journeys, and lyrics about science fiction and anarchy, was a far cry from the stripped-down assault of Motorhead, but its influence on Lemmy was huge. Imagine Lemmy, before he was the iconic frontman of Motorhead, joining this wild, experimental outfit. Hawkwind was known for its long, sprawling jams, its use of synthesizers and weird electronic effects, and its often chaotic live shows that were as much about the visual spectacle, think dancers and light shows, as the music. Lemmy's bass playing, which became such a distinctive part of Motorhead's sound, loud, distorted, and often played like a rhythm guitar, really started to take shape during his time with Hawkwind. He wasn't content to just sit in the background, he drove the music forward with a relentless, rumbling power. He famously said he wanted his bass to sound like a concrete mixer, and you can hear the beginnings of that philosophy in his Hawkwind recordings.
Hear that for many years by the press of being boring 3-chord electronic bores.
Being in Hawkwind also exposed Lemmy to a heavier, more tripped-out side of rock music than what was common at the time. This was music that took you on a journey, often a pretty strange one. While Motorhead would later simplify things and ramp up the speed, that early experience with long-form, atmospheric, and undeniably heavy music left its mark. Songs like Silver Machine, which Lemmy actually sang lead on and became a surprise hit single for Hawkwind, showed that he could deliver a catchy tune even amidst the cosmic chaos. It also gave him a taste of unexpected success, though Hawkwind was always more of an underground phenomenon.
When it's really cold, I mean, I used to have a pair of gloves on my cut off, the fingertips to play, I tell you, it was cold.
The lifestyle and attitude of being in a band like Hawkwind, with its counterculture vibes and often anti-establishment stance, also resonated with Lemmy's own rebellious spirit. They were outsiders, playing music that didn't fit neatly into any category, and that's something Lemmy would carry with him into Motorhead. Even though he was eventually fired from Hawkwind, famously for doing the wrong substances, the experience was crucial. It toughened him up, honed his musical skills, and probably solidified his determination to do things his own way. He learned about the power of a relentless rhythm section, the impact of a distinctive vocal style, and the importance of having a strong, uncompromising musical vision. Hawkwind was his launching pad, the spaceship that took him on his first wild ride through the rock and roll galaxy. Without Hawkwind, there would be no Motorhead as we know it. But Lemmy's taste wasn't just for the far-out and psychedelic, he also had a deep, abiding love for the kind of heavy, earth-shaking sounds that laid the very foundations of metal. 2. Black Sabbath. Next on the honor roll of bands is none other than the mighty Black Sabbath. This makes perfect sense. Lemmy, a man who practically defined a certain kind of heavy, no-nonsense rock and roll, naturally gravitated towards the godfathers of heavy metal. He was a clear fan of Black Sabbath's groundbreaking sound, that sludgy, heavy, and deeply bluesy noise that crawled out of Birmingham in the late 1960s and changed music forever. For Lemmy, Sabbath wasn't just another band, they were a key influence and a testament to the power of heavy music rooted in genuine feeling. Think about what Black Sabbath did. Tony Iommi, with his down-tuned guitar, partly due to a factory accident that cost him his fingertips, created riffs that were darker, heavier, and more ominous than anything that had come before. Ozzy Osbourne's distinctive, wailing vocals, Geezer Butler's thundering bass lines, which surely Lemmy appreciated, and Bill Ward's powerful, often jazz-influenced drumming combined to create a sound that was entirely new. It was slow, it was menacing, and it had a weight to it that was undeniable. This wasn't the psychedelic space tripping of Hawkwind. This was a heavy, grinding sound that felt like it came from the earth itself, or maybe somewhere a bit lower down. Lemmy loved the blues, and despite their dark image, Black Sabbath was fundamentally a blues band, albeit a twisted and amplified one. You can hear the blues in Iami's riffs and solos, even when they're at their most crushing. Lemmy, whose own music always had a raw, bluesy undertone, think of the structure of many Motorhead songs, stripped of their speed and distortion, would have recognized and respected this connection to the roots. He understood that the heaviest music often came from the deepest, most honest emotions, and the blues was all about that. Sabbath took those blues feelings, despair, anger, a sense of doom, and turned the volume way, way up.
What happened with Black Sabbath, we all ended up junkies and alcoholics and everything. In the end, disaster happens.
Moreover, Black Sabbath was undeniably heavy. In a world where rock was getting progressively louder, Sabbath set a new standard. They weren't just loud, they had a sonic density, a thickness to their sound that was suffocating in the best possible way. Lemmy, who dedicated his life to playing loud rock and roll, would have found a kindred spirit in Sabbath's commitment to heaviness. He understood that heavy music wasn't just about volume, it was about impact, about creating a sound that you could feel in your bones. Sabbath delivered that in spades. Their songs like Black Sabbath, Iron Man, and War Pigs were more than just songs, they were experiences, sonic monoliths that towered over the musical landscape.
You were joking when you said that, of course.
Yeah, right.
Lemmy appreciated authenticity, and Black Sabbath was nothing if not authentic. They were four working-class lads from an industrial city who created music that reflected their environment, dark, gritty, and uncompromising. There was no pretense about them, no attempt to be anything other than what they were. This straightforward, honest approach to making music, even if that music was about wizards and demons, would have appealed to Lemmy's no-bullshit attitude. He valued bands that were true to themselves and their sound, and Sabbath was certainly that. They weren't trying to be pop stars, they were creating a new, heavier form of rock, and Lemmy was clearly listening and taking notes. The DNA of Black Sabbath's heavy, blues-drenched sound is woven into the fabric of countless metal bands that followed, including, in its own unique way, Motorhead. Lemmy's love for honest, heavy music didn't stop with the originators. He also championed the newer, rawer bands who took that spirit and ran with it into even more extreme territory. 3. Venom.
So, what do you think about the band Hard Steel?
Who?
Hard Steel.
You fucking joking, aren't you?
This choice speaks volumes about Lemmy's unwavering commitment to rock and roll that was loud, aggressive, and unapologetically extreme. He reportedly loved Venom's untamed energy and their sheer, unadulterated aggression. Venom, hailing from Newcastle, England, are widely credited with kicking open the doors for what would become known as thrash metal, speed metal, and even black metal, with their self-proclaimed blackened thrash sound. For Lemmy, a man who always pushed the boundaries of volume and speed with Motorhead, Venom must have seemed like wonderfully noisy kindred spirits. Venom, emerging in the late 1970s and early 1980s, took the heavy sounds of bands like Black Sabbath and Motorhead and injected them with an extra dose of punk rock attitude, satanic imagery, often more for shock value than genuine belief, and a proudly lo-fi production quality. Their music was fast, it was messy, and it was incredibly aggressive. Songs like Welcome to Hell and Black Metal were not for the faint of heart. Kronos's guttural vocals, Mantas's chainsaw guitar riffs, and Abaddon's often frantic drumming created a sound that was deliberately abrasive and confrontational. This was music designed to offend, to shock, and to energize a generation of metalheads looking for something harder and faster.
Come on.
Not because you won't be nice to us.
I won't tell anybody else that you chose George Michael as well as Duran Duran. Right?
Lemmy, who always championed music that was real and unpolished, would have appreciated Venom's raw approach. In an era when some rock music was becoming increasingly slick and commercial, Venom was a blast of unrefined, primal noise. They weren't virtuoso musicians in the traditional sense, and they didn't care. Their focus was on attitude, on energy, and on creating the most extreme sound possible. This DIY, we don't give a damn spirit was something Lemmy understood and respected deeply. Motorhead itself was often criticized for being too loud or too rough around the edges, and Lemmy wore those criticisms like badges of honor. He would have seen Venom as fellow travelers on the path of sonic extremity. The sheer aggression in Venom's music was another likely point of connection for Lemmy. Motorhead's music was undeniably aggressive, but Venom took it to another level of lyrical and sonic darkness. Lemmy wasn't afraid of the darker side of rock and roll. And he likely saw Venom's theatrical Satanism and their brutal sound as part of the necessary rebellion that true rock should embody. It was about pushing limits, about challenging conventions, and about giving a middle finger to polite society. Venom did all of that with a grin. Furthermore, Lemmy, who often said Motorhead was just rock and roll, albeit a very loud and fast version of it, likely appreciated Venom's influence on the burgeoning extreme metal scene. He might not have been a fan of all the subgenres that followed, but he would have respected a band that had the guts to kickstart something new and dangerous. Venom, much like Motorhead, inspired countless younger bands to pick up instruments and make a racket, to be louder, faster, and more extreme than anyone before them. Lemmy understood the importance of that lineage, of passing the torch of rebellion to the next generation. In Venom, he saw a band that wasn't afraid to be ugly, to be loud, and to be utterly uncompromising, qualities that Lemmy himself held dear. They were a shot of pure, undiluted adrenaline, and that's exactly the kind of medicine Lemmy liked. This appreciation for uncompromising speed and aggression naturally led him to champion the next wave of bands who took that ethos and refined it into a razor-sharp attack. 4. Slayer.
But now I find you a very nice guy, so
What do you mean?
I go home. Let me go home.
Forging ahead, we encounter the unmistakable, ferocious sound of Slayer. It's well documented that Lemmy held this pioneering thrash metal band in high esteem. For a man whose own band, Motorhead, was a crucial precursor to thrash with its speed, volume, and relentless energy, Slayer would have represented a powerful continuation and intensification of those very principles. Slayer took the aggression dial and ripped it clean off, and that was something Lemmy could wholeheartedly get behind. They are considered a key influence on Motorhead, perhaps more in spirit and intensity than direct musical mimicry, but the mutual respect was palpable.
Everyone was a little short-sighted and said that everyone pretty much sounded the same.
Slayer, emerging from California in the early 1980s, became one of the big four of thrash metal, and for good reason. Their music was, and remains, a brutal assault on the senses. Characterized by lightning-fast tempos, chaotic and dissonant guitar solos from Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman, Tom Araya's aggressive vocal delivery and often dark, controversial lyrics, and Dave Lombardo's incredibly powerful and innovative drumming, Slayer created a sound that was terrifyingly intense. Albums like Rain and Blood are legendary for their uncompromising speed and ferocity, packing a relentless barrage of aggression into a concise, brutal package. Lemmy, who famously said, "If you think you are too old to rock and roll, then you are," would have appreciated Slayer's unwavering commitment to their extreme sound throughout their long career. They never softened their approach, never compromised their vision to chase mainstream acceptance. This dedication to their craft, this refusal to sell out or water down their intensity, was a quality Lemmy deeply respected. He understood the importance of staying true to your musical roots and your fans, even when faced with criticism or pressure to change. Slayer embodied that kind of artistic integrity, albeit in a very extreme form. The sheer power and speed of Slayer's music would have resonated strongly with Lemmy. Motorhead was built on a foundation of speed and volume, and Slayer took those elements and pushed them to their absolute limits. Lemmy's music was about a visceral, physical impact, and Slayer's music was like being hit by a sonic freight train. He would have recognized the musicianship required to play music that fast and that tight, even if it was a different style of complexity than, say, progressive rock. It was the complexity of pure, controlled aggression.
I like Take Machine Head everywhere, man. I mean, that's like the perfect opening band for us. I love them.
Furthermore, Slayer, like Motorhead, often courted controversy with their lyrical themes, which touched on subjects like warfare, serial criminals, and anti-religious sentiment. Lemmy was never one to shy away from controversial topics himself, and he believed that rock and roll should be dangerous and challenging. He would have respected Slayer's willingness to tackle dark and disturbing subjects, to explore the bleak side of humanity without flinching. It was a world away from safe, radio-friendly rock, and that was precisely the point. Lemmy saw Motorhead as a rock and roll band, pure and simple, but he also acknowledged their influence on the heavier genres that followed. In Slayer, he he would have seen a band that took some of those foundational elements of speed and aggression that Motorhead helped pioneer and built something new and even more extreme upon them. It was a sign that the spirit of uncompromisingly heavy music was alive and well, and being pushed forward by a new generation.
But it's also going to include some home stuff, some of the stuff that I worked on. And that's only going to be little bits and pieces because we plan to release like a home video.
For Lemmy, Slayer wasn't just another loud band. They were true torchbearers of extreme metal, and their relentless dedication to their brutal craft earned his genuine admiration. This respect for bands that took the energy of rock and metal to new heights also extended to another giant of the thrash scene, one that achieved massive success without losing their edge in Lemmy's eyes. 5. Metallica. Lemmy was known to make positive comments about Metallica, and they are widely considered one of the bands that both influenced Motorhead in a reciprocal way, as Motorhead heavily influenced them first, and earned Lemmy's respect for how they carried the flag of heavy music.
Yeah, finally found one.
Mansion someday, or what?
I kind of doubt it.
For Lemmy, who had seen countless bands come and go, Metallica's ability to achieve massive global success while, especially in their earlier days, maintaining a powerful, aggressive sound was something he could appreciate. Metallica, another member of thrash metal's Big Four, started out with a raw, blistering energy in the early 1980s that was heavily indebted to the new wave of British heavy metal and, crucially, to Motorhead. Albums like Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning showcased their youthful aggression, complex song structures, and impressive musicianship. James Hetfield's powerful rhythm guitar and distinctive vocals, Lars Ulrich's energetic drumming, Kirk Hammett's screaming guitar solos, and the foundational bass work of Cliff Burton created a sound that was both brutal and sophisticated. Lemmy, who had laid the groundwork for this kind of speed and intensity, would have seen in early Metallica a band that got it. What Lemmy likely admired in Metallica was their combination of raw power and musical ambition. They weren't just playing fast and loud for the sake of it, they were writing complex, memorable songs that pushed the boundaries of what heavy metal could be. While Motorhead's approach was often more direct and stripped down, Lemmy always respected good songwriting and strong musicianship, wherever he found it. Metallica had both in abundance. He would have appreciated their dedication to their craft and their ability to connect with a huge audience without, in his eyes, completely losing their integrity, a fine line that many bands fail to walk. Lemmy often spoke about the importance of energy and honesty in music, and early Metallica certainly delivered on those fronts. Their live shows were legendary for their intensity, and their music had a raw, street-level feel that connected with a generation of metal fans. Even as Metallica's sound evolved and they achieved stadium-filling success with albums like the Black Album, Lemmy seemed to maintain a level of respect for them. Perhaps he saw them as a band that had managed to take the aggressive spirit of thrash metal to a global stage, proving that heavy music could be both commercially successful and artistically valid.
My teeth rattle.
The influence was, of course, a two-way street. Metallica has always been very vocal about the massive influence Motorhead had on their sound and attitude. They covered Motorhead songs, and James Hetfield often cited Lemmy as a major inspiration. Lemmy, in turn, likely appreciated this acknowledgement from a younger band that had achieved such immense success. It was a sign of respect, a recognition of Motorhead's foundational role in the development of thrash and speed metal. Lemmy played at Metallica's 50th birthday celebration, performing Motorhead classics with them. For Lemmy, Metallica probably represented a successful evolution of the heavy music he helped pioneer. They took the torch, ran with it, and lit up the world, all while remembering and respecting the bands that came before them. In a music world that often forgot its roots, Metallica's nod to their influences, including Motorhead, would have meant a lot to Lemmy. He saw in them a band that understood the power and the spirit of heavy rock and roll, and carried it forward with conviction. Lemmy's musical loves show his unwavering dedication to powerful, honest rock. Which of his favorites do you think best captures his spirit? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.